Life really has not been going my way at the moment, but I still have a few things that I want to share with you. Hi, my name is Sarah, and my channel is all about sewing and styling a handmade wardrobe. I promise that I will get back to my personal style series, but I got derailed by some personal stuff that I will talk about at the end of the video, so stay tuned to the end if you want to hear about that. And I'll also be giving a few tips for expressing your creativity when you're under stress. But for now, let's just get to the new makes. The first item that I want to share with you is this Closet Core Cali Shacket. Now I have made this pattern twice before. This is my third version, and this is the first time adding on the sleeve expansion pack. I will insert some photos of the garments that I've made previously using this pattern. But for this particular version, I had this cotton flannel from Joann fabrics that I believe I bought last year, and I just think that the colors scream fall, so I really wanted to use it to make a lightweight layering piece. So I decided to use the Cali shirt and size up a little bit and make it into a shacket. I have really enjoyed sewing the Cali pattern in the past, and it has a lot of different versions that you can make, so I wanted to try out something new. So for this version, I did the button front placket with the visible placket. I added on the long sleeve expansion, like I said, and I did the tunic length view because it was meant to be a jacket. It was okay if it was a little bit longer. And I had a lot going on in my life when I was making this, so it's not perfect, but I did my best to match the plaids. And on the back, I turned the yoke on the bias, and then I did the same for the cuffs, and also the front button placket. Because this was meant to be a jacket, I also added some inseam pockets out of just some quilting cotton that I had in my stash. And I also put a little hanging loop here. Now for sizing, because this was meant to be a jacket, I did go ahead and size up and I reprinted the pattern. My first two versions I made in a size 0, but for this one I went up to a size 4. Now looking at the measurement chart, my body measurements technically fit into the size 2, so theoretically I did size up one size for this jacket, and I kind of wish I had gone up to the size 6 because although this does work as a jacket and I can layer it very easily over a thinner t-shirt or like a tank top or something, I do kind of wish that I had gone up one more size so that I could layer it over something like a sweater. I actually think that maybe if I had it to do over again, I would go ahead and size up like at the shoulders and the upper body to the 6, and then maybe grade back down to the 4 at the chest, because I think it's plenty wide enough through the body. It's just in the upper part where I feel like I use a little bit more room for layering. I did shorten the sleeves 2.5 inches, and I also graded up on the upper part of the back, like on the yoke and the back part, up to a size 6 just to give myself a little bit more room back there because I have a broad back. Now because I have made this before, I didn't really run into any issues with actually constructing it, except for the tower placket on the sleeves. As I had stated, this is my first time doing the longer sleeve expansion pack, and this is just my personal opinion, but I don't like the instructions that the Cali provides for creating a tower placket. I'm going to put in the diagrams that they have just so you can kind of see what I'm talking about. But the placket piece for the Cali shirt, it has a rectangular top, and you have to basically just fold it to make it into that triangle. And you end up having to just fold it up so that you get this little triangle here. Whereas other shirts that I've made, it kind of comes with that triangle piece already integrated into the pattern. And just by having a rectangle and folding it into a triangle made it really bulky to me and a little bit messy. So I really didn't enjoy that aspect of putting the pattern together. I feel like the instructions and the construction could have been a little bit better. And then the other thing that I'm not crazy about this particular garment is the tunic length, and specifically how it has a high-low hem where it has a curved hem that's shorter in the front and longer in the back. I think that just for my personal preference, I would have liked it to be more like a traditional shirt that was just more even in the front and back. I do feel like the back is a little bit long on me. So because of those two things, the length and the shape of the hem and also the tower placket instructions, I don't think that I would actually make this particular version of the Cali again, because I do have other shirt patterns that I have made before that I just liked a little bit better. But looking beyond that, I do really like the way that this turned out. It does really scream fall to me. I think that it makes a beautiful light layering piece. I have worn it a couple of times since finishing it, and it is nice and warm. And I definitely see myself pulling this out in many falls to come whenever I need a lightweight layer, because I do think that it's a very functional garment and I really love the plaid. The second piece that I want to share is actually a knitted scarf. This is the Archer scarf, and it's put out by the company Hudson & West Co. And the yarn that I used was also from Hudson & West. It's their Forge yarn, which I think is a Corriedale Merino blend. Now, for those of you who've been around for a while, I did used to have my own knitting YouTube channel, but I quickly found out that I just don't have the time or energy to maintain 2 YouTube channels. So I hope you won't mind if I occasionally talk about the things that I've knitted, because this is about the things that I make, and certainly knitting is a big part of my life. So for this scarf, I used size 7 interchangeable circulars. I think I used my Haya set, and I used about 5 skeins of yarn, which is what the pattern called for, so I would say that the yarn requirements were pretty accurate. I do have quite a bit of the 5th skein left over, but I would not have been able to complete the scarf without the 5th skein, if that makes sense. I probably used about a third of it. This is sort of a deceptively simple pattern. It is charted, and I really like using charts, and it's mostly lace with just a little bit of cabling, so it's really not as difficult as it looks. I absolutely love the fabric that it created. It's really, really thick and warm, and I actually got a little bit too warm when I was taking the photos, even though it was chilly outside, so I know that this is going to be absolutely perfect for when those snowy days come. It's going to keep me really warm and snuggly. This colorway is called Mallard, and I just absolutely love the color, and it fits in perfectly with my fall and winter color palette, and that was totally by accident. I actually bought this as a kit last year on Black Friday, so I had no idea at that time that I would be working off of a color palette for this year, but I'm really happy that it does fit in nonetheless. If you guys don't follow trends, then you may not know, but really big, thick, cozy scarves are back in for this season, and so I think that this is a really beautiful addition to my closet. I love the texture, and I just can't wait to wear it, even though, to be honest, I'm not that excited about it getting cold enough to actually wear this. Now, the last item of clothing that I have to talk to you about today is Simplicity 8554. This is my second version. I also made a shorter view in black viscose twill. This one is made out of a stretch linen viscose blend that I got from Minerva. This was part of a Minerva brand ambassador project, so I did receive the fabric for free. For this version, I made view A, which is the long duster version, and I added the front gun flaps that are technically on views B and C. I would have really liked to have done the view that had the tie sleeves, but the sleeve pattern piece for that view is actually quite wide, and then you cinch it in with the tie, and I just didn't have enough fabric to do that, so I just did the regular sleeve. Now for sizing, I made the size 6, which is the same size that I made the last time, and I shortened the sleeves by 2.5 inches, but I did not shorten the length of the body at all, and on the model I think it hits about mid-calf. It's sort of a midi length coat, but because I'm 4'9", it actually hits me at the ankles, so for me it's a really long duster coat. Now technically, when I was wearing this for the photos, I noticed that perhaps this length on me is maybe a little bit too long because it is kind of a tripping hazard. However, when I was styling it for the photos, I had it open with the tie belt tied in the back here. I do think that if I were to close it and cinch it with the belt, I'd be a little bit less likely to trip on it. But just in a perfect world, if I had it to do over again, I probably would have gone ahead and shortened the coat by about 2 inches just to be on the safe side so that I wouldn't trip. Now, when I was sewing this, I was not feeling my best, and so even though it is a very easy coat to construct, I kind of missed a few things in the instructions, and I went ahead and understitched the facing before I realized that because it turns out like this, you see the understitching. So just to kind of go back and fix that, I went ahead and just top stitched around a lot of the details here so that it looks more intentional, and I think that that turned out fine. It's not something that people are really going to notice. But I will say that if you are making this coat and you don't want to make the same mistake as me, make sure that you pay attention to the instructions and stop understitching at a certain point so that you don't see it on this part that flips out here on the lapel. After I finished making this coat, I noticed that the facing was really wanting to flip to the outside in certain parts, so I did go ahead and hand tack it down just in strategic areas to keep it from flipping out, and I did the same thing on the pockets so that they would stay anchored to the front. And I'm really glad that I did that. I just think that it'll be a lot easier to wear, and I won't have to worry about the facing like poking out when I'm trying to put the coat on and off. This fabric is relatively lightweight, and so it's not something that I'm going to wear in the deep part of winter. It's more of a transitional piece for those early fall days, but I do really love the way that it turned out. I love this gray color. It really fits in with the direction that I'm wanting to take my wardrobe. And I absolutely love the way that I styled it in the photos. I think that it just looks so classic. And I really am loving right now the combination of gray with brown. I just think it's really beautiful and a little bit different. So I'm looking forward to trying this coat with different color combinations and trying to style it up in different ways. Now, shifting focus just a little bit, I just want to share a little bit about what's been going on in my life and why I haven't been on YouTube as much. So this fall season of 2023 has not been kind to me and my family. So both my husband Jeff and I got COVID. My husband got it first. He got it from someone at work and then he passed it on to me. So I've been sick for a little while and I'm still recovering, but I am starting to feel a lot better now. So that's why the wardrobe series has been pushed back a little bit. So there were many days where I just couldn't even get out of bed. There was no way I was going to get dressed and take outfit photos. So I am hoping to get back on track with that series and get the next video out to you pretty soon. I also just haven't been as productive with my crafting for a variety of reasons, but certainly being sick was one of them. So I thought I would just share a handful of tips with you that I found really helpful for if you want to craft when you're not feeling at your best. And first and foremost, I just want to say, be gentle on yourself. If you're not feeling 100%, whether that's because of illness or just other things that are going on in your life, or if you're really busy and you just don't have time to make the things that you want to make, it's okay. They're still going to be there. Most of the time, we're crafting as a hobby. There's not really any real deadlines. The projects will be there for you when you are ready to tackle them. Now for me, I did have a couple of brand ambassador projects that I'm actually still working on, and I don't think technically any of them are overdue or late at this point, but certainly if anybody contacted me and wanted to know what was going on, I would just tell them that I've been sick with COVID. Whether it's through work or other things, people have certainly been very understanding when I tell them that I've been ill, so nobody is expecting you to be at your best 100% of the time. So it's okay to just take it easy now and then. Now, if you're like me and at some point maybe you don't feel your best, but you're just kind of tired of doing nothing, I'm the kind of person who just really likes to stay busy a lot of the time. I don't like being idle. And so sometimes, even though I wasn't feeling very well, I was just itching to do something. But I also did not technically have the stamina to do my normal amount of crafting. So for sewing, I'm not really the kind of person who just does like a 15 minutes here, 15 minutes there. I'm more the kind of person who's gonna do like a fairly large chunk of time, like maybe a couple of hours, and then take a break. Of course, it depends on the difficulty of the garment, but usually when I'm making something, it will normally take me maybe 2 to 4 sessions to like finish up a garment, depending on difficulty. But when I was feeling sick, I found that I could only do maybe 1 or 2 steps in the instructions, and then I would just have to stop and take a break. So I think that that is a totally valid way to approach things. Like, don't go into sewing thinking, I'm gonna finish up this whole thing today. Just do a couple steps and assess how you're feeling, and if you need to stop for the day, that's perfectly fine. Another tip that I have for you is to maybe switch to a different craft. So I've actually been doing a lot of knitting lately rather than sewing, because knitting is something that I can do when I'm sitting in bed and watching TV. And for me, it's also just a lot easier to stop and start, because I could finish a row and then realize that I'm tired and then put it down for a little while. It's a little bit less hassle for me because knitting just doesn't take up as much space. There's not as many things, there are tools you're working with. I could just stuff my project back in my project bag and just set it aside for a while. So if you do have other crafts that you like to do besides sewing, maybe something like cross stitch, like I haven't actually pulled out my cross stitch, but I was thinking that that would be a good thing to do when I'm not feeling my best. Maybe switch to that for a little while rather than doing something that takes up a lot of time and space and energy. My last tip isn't really about crafting at all, but maybe it's just about exercising your mind a little bit and keeping things going. As I said, I think it's just about that like need to not be idle. A couple of days I just wasn't really feeling like doing any crafting, so I was just on my computer and doing some Sudoku puzzles. Just little things to make me think a bit and occupy my time, but also extremely low stakes. Like there was nothing that I was gonna permanently mess up if I didn't solve that puzzle. So those are just a few tips that I have if you want to try to exercise your mind and get some of that creative impulse out. but you're just not feeling your best, and I hope that you found that helpful, and please feel free to share your own tips down in the comments. I would love to hear them. So in case you missed the first video in my personal style series and you want to catch up on that before the next episode comes out, watch this one next.